The forest was quiet, cloaked in the stillness of winter. Snow blanketed the ground, muffling every sound except for the occasional creak of trees under the weight of frost. Kate pulled her coat tighter against the biting wind as she made her way along the riverbank. The faint gurgle of the icy current was the only hint of life in the frozen landscape until a sudden, distant splashing shattered the calm. Kate froze, her breath catching in her throat. The sound was faint but frantic, an erratic disturbance that didn't belong. She quickened her pace, her boots crunching through the snow as the splashing grew louder. When she rounded the bend, her heart dropped. In the middle of the river, a lynx was struggling against the current, its sleek, silver-gray fur plastered to its body. The animal clawed desperately at the icy water, but a thick rope tied around its waist tethered it to a large, jagged stone that was pulling it under. Kate's stomach twisted in horror. For a moment, she stood frozen, unable to look away from the lynx's golden eyes, wide with terror. Its strength was failing, each splash weaker than the last. Without a second thought, Kate threw off her pack, kicked off her boots, and plunged into the frigid water. Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Please subscribe us. Kate didn't hesitate. The icy water hit her like a wall of needles, stealing her breath as she waded deeper. The current tugged at her legs, the river's frigid grip unrelenting. Her teeth chattered as she pushed forward, her eyes locked on the lynx. The animal thrashed wildly, its claws scraping at the air as it tried to keep its head above water. Kate's heart pounded as she closed the distance, the rope around its torso visible now, frayed but strong, tethered to the jagged stone, sinking it inch by inch. Easy, easy, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rush of the water. She knew the lynx couldn't understand her, but the words helped steady her nerves. As she reached out, the lynx lashed out with a desperate swipe, its claws grazing her arm through the layers of her soaked coat. She flinched but didn't pull back. "I'm not going to hurt you," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. The lynx's golden eyes met hers, wild and untrusting, but behind the fear was something else, something that looked like a plea. In that fleeting moment, Kate made a silent promise. Bracing herself against the current, she reached for the rope. Her fingers were numb, fumbling against the knot, but she pulled with everything she had. The water surged around her, and the weight of the stone dragged her down, but she refused to let go. The lynx thrashed again, weaker now, but it didn't fight her as she worked. "Almost there," Kate whispered, her voice trembling. Her nails scraped against the frozen rope until, finally, the knot gave way. The stone sank into the depths, leaving the lynx free. Kate grabbed the exhausted animal, its fur slick and cold against her arms. Its body trembled violently, but it didn't resist as she turned and began the agonizing trek back to shore. The river fought her every step, the cold sapping her strength, but she refused to stop. With every step, the lynx grew heavier in her arms, its head drooping against her chest. "Hold on," she urged, though her teeth were chattering so hard the words barely came out. When Kate finally reached the riverbank, she collapsed onto the snow, gasping for air. The lynx lay limp in her arms, its shallow breaths visible in the cold air. "Stay with me," she said, cradling the animal close. The urgency in her voice masked the raw fear gripping her heart. She had saved it from drowning, but the fight was far from over. Kate leaned against the counter, exhaustion tugging at her every muscle, but her eyes stayed fixed on the enclosure. Inside, the lynx, now nicknamed Frost for its striking silver coat, lay curled on a bed of straw, its chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. "You're tougher than you look," she whispered, her voice soft but resolute. Frost had endured so much, yet its spirit still flickered like a fragile flame. The veterinarian's words echoed in her mind, "It's malnourished and hypothermic, but it has a fighting chance." Kate clung to those words as she tended to the lynx over the following days, warming it with blankets and coaxing it to take water and small bites of food. Meanwhile, she'd reported the incident to the authorities, detailing the rope and stone she'd pulled from the river. The investigators didn't take long to uncover clues, a series of traps along the riverbank and footprints leading to a nearby cabin. A local poacher, known for his disregard for wildlife laws, quickly became the prime suspect. Kate seethed with anger when she heard the news. How could someone be so cruel? But her determination burned brighter than her fury. She vowed to see justice done, for Frost and for every other animal that might have suffered at the man's hands. Weeks passed, and Frost began to recover. Its coat grew glossy, its strength returning with every careful step it took inside the enclosure. The day finally came for Frost's release. Kate and the wildlife officer drove deep into the forest, selecting a location far from human interference. As the cage door creaked open, Frost hesitated, its golden eyes scanning the wilderness. Then, with a single powerful leap, it vanished into the trees. Kate exhaled, a bittersweet mix of pride and sadness swelling in her chest. The sound of a gunshot shattered the moment. Kate's heart dropped as she bolted toward the sound, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Bursting through the underbrush, she found Frost collapsed on the forest floor, blood staining its shoulder. Standing over the lynx was the poacher, rifle in hand. "You again," he sneered. Rage surged through Kate. Without thinking, she lunged at him, grabbing the barrel of the rifle and twisting it away. "You're done," she growled, forcing him backward. The sound of sirens cut through the forest air. The authorities arrived just in time, handcuffing the poacher as Kate knelt beside Frost. "You're safe now," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. The poacher struggled against the officers as they hauled him away, his curses fading into the forest. Kate barely registered it, her focus entirely on Frost. Blood matted the lynx's silver fur, and its breathing was shallow, but its golden eyes fluttered open, locking onto hers. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, brushing a hand lightly over its uninjured side. Her voice trembled, but her resolve was steady. She wouldn't let Frost suffer again. With the help of the officers, she gently lifted Frost into the back of their truck, cradling its head as they drove toward the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center. The journey felt endless, every passing second stretching as Kate watched Frost's labored breaths. When they arrived, the veterinarian team was ready. Kate stepped aside reluctantly, watching as they wheeled Frost into an emergency room. The image of the lynx lying so still tore at her, but she refused to leave the center, pacing the waiting area for hours. Finally, the head vet emerged, a tired but reassuring smile on her face. "It was a close call, but Frost is strong. The bullet didn't hit anything vital. With time, it should make a full recovery." Relief washed over Kate, her knees nearly buckling as the weight of the day caught up with her. She spent every spare moment at the center in the following weeks, watching Frost heal. Their bond deepened, forged in survival and trust. And for the first time in years, Kate allowed herself to hope. The snow-dusted mountains stretched endlessly before Kate, their peaks bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. Frost stood at the edge of the enclosure, its silver coat gleaming in the golden light. The lynx looked stronger than ever, its sharp eyes scanning the wilderness that awaited it. Kate opened the enclosure door, stepping back to give Frost space. For a moment, the lynx hesitated, its powerful frame poised as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Then, with a single fluid motion, it leapt forward, its paws landing softly on the untouched snow. It paused only once, glancing back at Kate. Their eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a bond forged in survival and trust. With a final bound, Frost disappeared into the wilderness, free at last. Kate stood in silence, the ache of farewell tempered by the satisfaction of justice served. She turned back to the truck, her resolve strengthened. There would always be more to fight for, more lives to protect. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.